she takes a picture, and in that picture is this ET. He puts the camera over and 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 he puts the camera over and
All right, so good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are in the world. I hope that you can hear me okay. Let's start with a test. Please let me know on the stream if you can hear me okay. Last week, my computer took well, it died, fried my video card, and I'm operating on a borrowed computer, and I need to know whether you can hear me. Okay, thank you, Frank. Anybody else? So Frank can hear me good? Hopefully the audio quality is good. I've had some variable success with this, this Logitech webcam. Sometimes it sounds good, sometimes it's really scratchy. So I'm hoping that now that I'm on a different computer, it's sounding better. Good to go. Thank you, Chris. Loud and clear. Okay, we're going to go ahead and go with that. Everybody, I see you've got some really good questions here. We'll dive into that here in just a little bit. So we've done the test picture. I want to, some of you have probably seen that I posted a live stream that was online for maybe like a day and a half. And I want to explain that. Some people had some questions about it. I had somebody write to me wanting to offer some information, and this person wanted to actually use some pieces of my video of William Tompkins in a bit of a documentary or explanation of Freemasonry, because Bill Tompkins had talked about Freemasons on the moon. And if you've seen my interview with him, you know that he mentions Buzz Aldrin going through the flag ceremony on the moon, and he stipulates that they did that before we saw Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon. So apparently, I don't know, it was Buzz set foot on the moon first, and it was the Freemasons that were the first ones on the moon. But anyhow, this guy had written to me several days in a row, and I tried replying to him, and the messages kept bouncing off of his mail server as suspected spam. Go figure. So I figured, well, 3 strikes, you're out, you know. And then I figured, well, let me try to reach out to him one more time, and that's why I created the video of him requesting him to, you know, hey, look, here's your emails, they're bouncing, contact me through Skype. That we ultimately connected through Skype, and I had about a 90-minute call with him. Turns out this guy is a Freemason and has been for 40 years, and is trying to get a lot of the occult symbolism out, and he's been doing it piecemeal and sharing it with the various lodges. But anyhow, he's putting together another video, and he just wanted to use that bit from William Tompkins. He's offered to do a thing with me, so we may wind up having him in a future live stream. But first, before that happens, it's not going to be anytime soon. He's got to send me some information that I want to review, so I figure, you know, 3 or 4 weeks down the road, we'll try to have a live stream with him. I think that would prove to be very interesting to see. Based on the conversation I had with him, he shared so much stuff with him, and I had to cut it off. There's so much stuff. And here, I think that you guys would enjoy hearing from this guy. So that explains the cryptic live stream. Next up, I want to talk about the teams and the pods. When I got involved with the pods, it was right after I met Ralph Ring. I kind of inserted myself between Ralph and the rest of the world, and wound up kind of self-assign myself as the reporter guy on any information coming out of the pods. My hope was that in a relative short period of time, they would construct a model that would prove whether this thing would work or not. And I think a lot of you out there who have followed the OTCX1 projects, or maybe are familiar with my website before I took it down and put it back up again, you know that I reported very little. And the reason is, and this is going to segue into suggestions for people who want to help. The reason that I didn't report on a lot is because, number one, I didn't have permission. And number two, the members of my particular pod or team, as I call it, we in concert agreed that we didn't want to put out any information that would send people down the wrong path, cause them to waste a lot of money. You know, so our goal was to put together a viable product, something that we knew would work, that was peer-reviewed, documented, we could release to the world as functional. Clearly, we never got there. Some interesting things happened in 2008. I'll save that for another talk. But just to know that for now, my suggestions to people who want to help is that you start your own pod. Seriously, I mean, it's not like there are pods all over the world. If you really want to do it, you scrape together some people who share a common interest. With regards to documentation and plans, I've had this question asked me quite a bit, and somebody in the stream head wants to ask Ralph whether there are any photograph proof or documents to prove what he did. Yeah, they're out there. I mean, you can go to my website right now at clandestinedisclosure.com under projects, and you see the handful of surviving documents that came from that time. One of them's a patent. It's called an amusement device patent. Otis T. Carr had put together some plans for this thing, and the patent office, as the story goes, wouldn't accept it because it violated all the rules of physics. So he created what was called an amusement device. So he sold these amusement devices to a park somewhere in Oklahoma City or something. You know, and there are pictures, photographs of a craft, but it's an amusement device craft, a model of what the craft could be if it would work. The other thing that's left over from his time is another document that's a, call it toy kit plans. That's what I'm referring to them as. And again, you go to my website and you download and see them. Once again, you know, these are plans for a model. And even Carr was saying, look, if you want to know how it works, write to me, call me, you know, talk to us. You know, my take on that is, look, we don't know. You know, did it ever work? Who knows? You know, Ralph says it worked. They built a 40-foot craft in Apple Valley, California. Ralph boarded that craft with 2 other operators because they didn't fly it. They consider themselves operators. They don't call it a flying saucer. They call it a circular foil craft. Circular foil craft. And they operated at 10 miles downrange and back at the speed of thought. So there's a whole other story behind that. The point being, you know, nothing... You know, we don't have anything that says exactly how this craft is wired. Ralph is not an engineer. He's modeled himself as a cheerleader more than anything else, and was selected by Carr to operate the craft because they had a good relation. So there's also some other promotional material on the website. One's called Atoms for Peace. You know, there's another book out there, Return of the Dove. There's some recordings, interviews with Ralph, not with Ralph Ring, but with Otis Carr talking about the craft and their desire to launch the craft and go to the moon and such. But that's about it. According to Ralph, everything else was confiscated in a raid by the government. They arrived in 2 lowboy trucks to cart off both craft, and everything was confiscated and carted off. So that's Ralph's story. I mean, it's all that's out there. Those are all his claims. If you want to learn more about it, like I say, it's out there recorded. And I've got, you know, from 2011 questions that I asked him. We covered it quite extensively. So yeah, so my suggestions, okay, for more suggestions for people, not just, you know, building these craft. Be careful, you know. I mean, you could wind up spending thousands of dollars and have yourself a really nice looking doorstop. You know what I'm saying? So really set your expectations. Straight away, I'm telling you right now that there's nothing in the plans that's going to make the craft work. Dimensions of Mystery. Sorry, there was one other document called Dimensions of Mystery, and as it goes, Dimensions of Mystery it's written in Rosicrucian terminology, which through our research, we validated that is indeed written based on code that the Rosicrucians use, and Otis Carr's claim, or our understanding of Otis Carr's claim, is that Carr encoded the secrets of how to make the craft work into Dimensions of Mystery. Once again, that document is also on my website, and you can download it and read it and try to decode to your heart's content. We've had guys working on it for, you know, the time that I was involved, for 8 years and more, trying to figure out what all that stuff meant. And from my observation, a lot of these guys have had different opinions about what the code means, but none of it has resulted in a functional craft. Ralph does not have a layer of craft waiting to take off. He just doesn't have any of that stuff, okay? So we're going to set the record straight. Ralph doesn't have any of this stuff. Ralph does not have functional craft. Ralph is not an engineer, okay? You know, he was at best, he was an IDOD specialist who did a little turning of parts. And he went to get burgers for the guys who were engineers. So there you have it. But be careful. You know, if you know a little bit about electronics, you know enough to know that, you know, when you start futzing around with this stuff, you've really got to know what you're doing. I had advanced engineers, electrical engineers on my team. I had people for space agencies I won't mention who are on my team. To this day, I still have engineers contacting me, asking me what they can do to help. And I've walked away. I've washed my hands. I'm done because of stuff that happened in 2008. And again, I'll tell that story another time. And Ralph, just as a spoiler alert, will tell you that he's also retired. So just the same, I see you've got some questions here. I will extend those to him. I'll pick out the best ones. We're going to have 60 minutes with Ralph and Marsha. So if you're watching this as a replay and didn't get a chance to post your question through the stream, write to me. My email is walter@clandestinedisclosure.com. You saw it in the first 10 minutes of this video. Please write to me before September 11th, 2021, and we'll be live streaming with Ralph and Marsha at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Anyhow, I think I've covered all I wanted to. Let me see my notes here. Make me read my chicken scratch here. Yeah, be careful. Don't waste money. I don't anticipate providing any more pod updates in the near future. I have people who have some pretty interesting ideas about how to make the craft work, but everybody's got those. I can't tell you how many different emails I get from people who, oh, I got it figured out. I'm like, okay, bring it. And my next follow-on to that is, great, you've got it figured out. Why not test it? What have you done to test it? You know, give it a try. So if you think you've got it figured out, try it. You're gonna quickly find out that it's not as simple as you think, and it's more expensive than you think, and it usually isn't. Trust me. I mean, I talk to guys, and you may be listening now. You've spent $3,000 to $5,000 and you've got a really nice doorstop now, and it doesn't work. You put it together per the plans, and you haven't figured out a way to get it to work. I'm not saying that it won't work. I'm saying that nobody's discovered a way to make it work yet that I'm aware. Again, as for pods, you want to join one, start one. That's on you. My documents are out there. Good luck. Okay. What are we going to talk about next? Let me look through the stream here and see what we got going. Let's see here. Can the saucers be reproduced using resources available to the average consumer? Well, if you follow what Ralph says, apparently they could. In 1950s technology, they did it. And again, you know, I'll toss these questions towards Ralph too. I'll email all these questions to him, and you know, maybe he'll come back with some answers, and we'll share all that online. Let's see. Oh, Alexei Chukurkov. Yeah, that's still a question mark in my head. It looks pretty convincing. Although I do recall seeing, and I haven't seen it for myself, but I remember seeing a comment under one of his videos when somebody thought that they'd seen him with like a fishing pole, you know, levitating this thing. I don't know. Then at the same time, I know a guy who, you know, works for a very well-known studio, very big movies you've heard of, and is involved in all the special effects, who lives in wire removal, and he says, I can guarantee you, I bet my job on it, that's real. Yeah, so take Alexei Chukurkov for what it's worth. Let's see here. Sounds good. So that's Alexei Chukurkov. Explain. Let's see. Oh, you want more? Yeah, regarding diet, well, yeah, that's still up in the air. Let me go to the top here. I see these were some good questions. I just want to call these out because, okay, W2H happened to this world. Hey, I have a question for Mr. Ring. Does he have documents or pictures he can show to help his story? Yes, I've already described those. Let's see, Dane 432. What will happen to the institution of money if the if the marginal cost of producing energy approaches zero. Exactly. Great question. I don't know that Ralph's going to have an authoritative answer, but I'll toss it his way. How's that? Let's see. Logan Tsai. I'm quite curious if Mr. Ring would ever do a conversation with Dr. Greer. I wonder if he knows Dr. Greer. I would love to see more people get to know Ralph's story. Well, having interviewed William Tompkins, I know that he had interfaced and was interviewed by Dr. Greer as well. I know from what Bill told me that Greer is pretty stiff when it comes to being able to sense whether people are lying or not. So he's I don't know, he's pretty tough with that. And I don't know, since Ralph is kind of retired too, I don't know that would ever happen. But again, I'll toss that question towards Ralph, and we'll see what happens. And Ralph just celebrated his 86th birthday, so. Anyhow, Mr. Ring, where was the UFO under Ocean City you saw located near? Is it still there? Hey, Jonathan, could you? I'm not familiar with this, with Ralph talking about this. Do you have additional information about where you got this? Maybe he'll know it, but just for me, I'm curious to know about that. I didn't know that Ralph saw an under Ocean City. Orango Tango Alien, my project. Wow. Alpha Narcissus Sleeper Zombie, the real Gandhi. Our advanced civilization. Boy, this is good. Our advanced civilizations living not only beyond time, but projecting it as a matrix to harvest energy from beings on a third plane. Well, there's a lot of presumptions in that question. That we have advanced civilizations living beyond time, possible, and that they're projecting it as a matrix, possible, and that they're harvesting energy from us on a 3D plane. I reckon that's all possible. I don't know that you're going to get an authoritative answer on that one, but again, I'll toss it his way. Good luck. Let's see. Clary, oh boy. Clarenivald, I hope I got that right. What hope does this generation have for getting public disclosure this decade? Trump had attempted it, but when the report came out, the media was quick to call it a nothing burger. Well, I know that it was necessarily Trump's effort. It happened during his administration. It started actually beforehand during Obama with other people who were supporting it in actually as late as 2017. And what it turned out to be was the Tic Tac. That was it. That was your nothing burger. Oh yeah, well, we're aware they exist. And when that thing came out, I don't know about you, but I felt that they weren't going to go beyond that, and they didn't. It feels like a lot of us are assuming public disclosure is in the sole hands of the government. I don't think it's in the hands of the government. On the other side, a lot of folks have stipulated that disclosure, we're the disclosure movement. It's on us. And I think Greer may take this approach as well through a CE5 contacts. And if you go forth and you request a contact and you have one, I reckon there's your disclosure. But it's not really on a wider scale, because it tends to be more spiritual in nature, more in here based on experiential than it is something. Show me a solid flying saucer landing on the White House lawn. I don't know that you're going to see that. So really, you take a look at both sides. You've got the government side, and then you've got the people side. Who is really in charge of full disclosure? Is it one, the other, or both, or neither? I tend to go towards neither. I think it's not according to either of them, but to those who are flying the craft around. They're the ones who are going to decide when that's going to happen. That's my take on it. Again, we'll toss these questions towards Ralph and see how he does. Big Drum, let's see, how are they doing physically and spiritually? Are they getting back on track with lipo? Okay, yeah, I don't know, man. No. Let's see, Ring. Mr. Ring revealed secret Tesla bovine OTX project Redbird. That's orangutan. If you could, it's a little cryptic for me. If you could fill in the blanks for me, because I'll drop that towards Ralph, and I got a feeling he's going to go, what? Appreciate it. Let's see what else we got down here. All right. Invitation all the way in the bottom. Martin, let me see what you're saying here. So you're saying, Martin R says, what happens is that once you create anti-gravity signal, yeah, it will be picked up by government and knock knock, mister, you better stop what you're doing or something might happen. Wink, if you know what I mean. Yeah, Martin, you're hitting it close to home, very much so. Let's see. Guru mentioned Otis Carr in his book, Unacknowledged. Oh, cool. RH, thank you. So RH says that Dr. Guru mentioned Otis T. Carr in his book, Unacknowledged. I don't know. What's Guru's take on it? What do you guys think? I mean, RH, did he say whether he believed it or he's just using it as, just an example of one more thing or something else? I don't know. Ooh. Yeah, Hutchison. Yeah. So Eleftheria. I'm sorry if I'm hacking the username. Eleftheria. Yeah, Hutchison. So you're coattailing what Martin was saying about knock knock. I spent a month running around with John Kenneth Hutchison at the Gulf of Mexico in 2010, right after the Macondo whale blowout. For those of you who don't know who Hutchison is, look up the Hutchison effect. He had an apartment in Canada where it was literally jam-packed with radios that he had salvaged from Canadian and other naval vessels that he was disassembling so that he was a member of the Reef Society, so he'd take out all this gear and he acquired it all. All the radios. He was really into that, and he had like gun mounts and all this other stuff that he was into. And then those ships would be taken out and sunk, and they would become reefs for the fish. So he was a member of the Reef Society, and that's what he did. But in his apartment, being having a fear of wide open spaces, I think agoraphobic, his apartment was literally jam packed. I mean, you could just literally, if you see videos of him in his apartment, it's really tight, floor to ceiling, with radios. He had shelves suspended from the ceiling with all these radios that he would tune by feel. Now, I don't know that he necessarily set out to achieve anti-gravity, but he had in his apartment places that were called hotspots. And anything that would be put in that hotspot would levitate. Cannonballs, hammer, ice cream, and then other weird things would happen. There would be a melding of dissimilar materials, like a butter knife into wood, these sorts of things. Impurities in metal samples would migrate to a bit of the core, making that metal 99.999% pure. So he's got all these samples, iron that would turn in sponge-like based on these frequencies, right? So anyhow, that's to give you a bit of background on John Kenneth Hutchison. At the Gulf of Mexico, somebody contacted him and said, well, maybe we can use your technology to clean the Gulf of Mexico to get rid of all the oil. So that's why I was down there, because their claim was they were blasting the Gulf of Mexico with all these radio streams, and that would clean the Gulf. Even John Hutchison wouldn't say that's what was happening when I talked to him. This story that I uncovered was not so much about cleaning the Gulf with radio frequencies than it was about a love story. This was about John Kenneth Hutchison, who was courting a woman who was interested in his technology, and together they had acquired a 20-foot horse trailer, a borrowed truck, navigated all of John's radios in that truck and horse trailer from Canada across the border of the United States and Canada all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, and they were just going up and down the Gulf of Mexico in Texas, Alabama, Louisiana, and Florida with their radio stuff, and it was just nuts. It was one of the craziest, wildest trips I'd ever been on. But anyhow, that was the very first thing I worked on when I first got my cameras in 2010, and I had to put that whole project on the wayside and move on to something else, and that's when I found Ralph Ring. I feel like I'm going on and on here. I hope this is okay. Let me dive back into the comments here and see what you're saying. RH says, I think Greer believes it. Thank you for that answer to my question. Mercury, yep, they've been hiding 369 technology. Oh, a Tesla buff. Now things will start to change. Okay, that's Mercury. Mauricio, will Mr. Ring go live now? No. As I had up front, on September 11th at 1 p.m. Pacific time, I'll have both Ralph and Marsha Ring on. So today, since my computer crashed, I had to borrow a computer, reinstall OBS, reinstall NDI, install the drivers for my camera, and test to make sure that it works okay. And that's why I'm here today, rambling in front of this camera. Hey, Jerome, good to see you, buddy. Glad you could join us. Let's see, how many ships were made with ODA? Oh, great question. A lot. Excuse me. So Orangutan Alien asked how many ships were made with Mr. Otis's project. It's Otis T. Carr, his project. Back in 1960 at Apple Valley, California, Hesperia, California, they had acquired a plant there. And according to Ralph, I asked him the same question. I thought it was just a few, because Ralph talks about two 40-foot crafts. They discontinued work on one after meeting with General Motors and focused all their efforts on the one that Ralph actually operated. And it was shortly after that they were raided and everything was confiscated. But Ralph told me that they brought to the meeting at General Motors at a hotel in Riverside, California. They met with some executives there, and Ralph was present, and they had these smaller models, and Ralph said they built many of them. I don't know if it's dozens, it's a whole bunch of them that they built before they found one that worked. Again, this is Ralph's story. You can ask him about that, and I will ask him again so he can validate that for you. How's that sound? Let's see. How does the coil work? Which one? In what context? You're talking about within the craft. That's a question that has a lot of different answers. You can dig and you can look up inductors. You can look up the principle of induction. You can look up coils and LC circuits, LCR circuits, tank circuits, and you'll start getting a clue for how coils work. How they work in the context of the craft is up to speculation. Even the engineers came up with some ideas on how they could leverage the coil through resonance and kind of a daisy chain of tank circuits and mixed signals on those circuits. So it gets really complicated. So I feel like I'm kind of throwing a lot of terminology out there, but you can look up Don Smith. You can look up their resonant circuits. That may be a place to start if you want to learn more about that. YouTube is chock full of electronic stuff. If you want to learn about, just Google electronic coils and how they work, and you get a solid answer. But for the craft, how do they work? My thought early on was that they were wrapped. The coils are wrapped around those outer neutrons around the periphery of the inner disk, and as such, those neutrons would pass through a C-shaped magnet. And I felt, well, whenever and this is induction. This is the basic induction. This is how all induction motors work. You're going to induce current to flow in a conductor whenever it passes through a magnetic field, and it's relative motion. It doesn't matter whether the magnetic field is moving or whether the coil is moving. You still wind up inducing current to flow in a conductor. And a coil or a coil of wire, that's an inductor. I feel like I'm getting way too deep on this for the one question. I hope that helps, but I'd encourage you, if you want to know more about it, look online. Let's see, won't be easier. This is outside Tesseract. Great handle. Would it be easier to first work on parts of the crafts? Great question. Parts of the crafts such as the Utron to create a zero-point energy device. We discussed that back in 2010, actually, and the engineers came to the consensus that you can't really take this thing apart. You have to look at it as a system. How do you create 0 point? And that's an assumption. The craft. Oh, it's real simple. All you got to do is invent 0 point energy and perpetual motion, and you've got it, right? I don't know. It's try it. If you want to take it apart a component at a time, go for it. The guys did that. We actually did some tests with a Utron about this big, and it screwed together, and we had coils on the outside of it. The test that the engineers ran back in 2011 revealed, now this is interesting, revealed that nothing different than what we already know in electronics. Fast forward to 3 years ago, I meet the same energy engineer and I revisit this conversation with him. And my understanding, there was some confusion about the test leads they were using, and he informed me that they found some anomalies with that. Voltages were greater than expected. I don't have the nuts and bolts. Please, if you're going to play with coils, be careful. Know what you're doing. 1 amperage of current is enough to be lethal. Okay, so just so you know, I mean, when you start playing with coils, you're building up huge charges, and it's just like your computers. You're not going to crack open your power supply in your computer and start futzing around in there. There's enough in there that it can be lethal. The same thing goes with inductors and coils. Just be very careful. You can futz with it. Know what you're doing. Yeah, but you know, on an individual basis, component basis, they gave it a go. Let's see. Tamara Terry Music, thanks for joining us. Glad you can make it out today. Carrie, boy, you guys are really challenging with these names. I'm sorry. I'm not even going to try that. Otarua, greetings forum. I was looking forward to hear from the proverbial Lord of the Rings. I love it. That's awesome. Ralph, 9/11, 1 p.m. Pacific time. He'll be online with his lovely wife Marsha too. So you have questions for both of them. Let's see. Mercury, is Space Force making those huge ships I've been hearing about, 20 miles long? Well, so you're mixing Space Force with, I think, rumor about Solar Warden and Tompkins stories about 20-mile long craft. Who knows? I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. Rohit Kumar. I've been following your work since 2015. Loved and appreciated it through and through. Thank you. You're so kind. Thanks for your service. My pleasure. Wonder if you could make a comment on vaccinations around the globe. Any info? Well, I could, but I don't want to lose half my audience. Personally, my choice is not to take it. Okay, how's that? Let's see. Did the government confiscate? Okay, Frank, did the government confiscate units that did not work, or did they take just the ones that were operational? Frank, they took everything. They took plans, they took equipment, they put it on trucks and hauled it off. Now, I remember talking to Ralph offline when he was in Arizona. He was in, where was he? His home in Arizona. I forget the name of it wasn't Paradise. Gosh, I can't remember the name of the town. Anyhow, he described a time where he went to a local junior college and somebody was there talking about black projects. And this guy mentioned having seen one of the craft, and an OTC craft, and it was blackened. And the story, Ralph's story, is that they attempted to mount weapons on it and it wouldn't work. You know, and it just wound up blowing up or something. You can ask Ralph about that for clarification. I'm probably botching that whole retelling. It was like 10 years ago I talked to him about that. Calicade, I'm not even going to pronounce that. Orangutango Alien, you're really pushing the extent of my ability to pronounce some of these things. I apologize. Love the emoji though. That's awesome. Adventures in Skateboarding at 40 plus. See, I didn't realize how big this world is until my grandfather passed. Glad he has people like you to keep his joy alive. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. What has happened to Captain Richards? Okay, Anna Trejos. What has happened to Captain Richards? Interview by Carrie Cassidy. All right, so for those of you who don't know, Carrie Cassidy had interviewed, I didn't see the interview, but her YouTube terminated her account. Shut her down because of some content she covered on her channel. Apparently she interviewed somebody, a doctor, about the vax, and I'll leave it at that. She still does have a website, though, if you want to visit there. I don't know if her videos are out there, if she's put them somewhere else. I haven't taken the time to investigate. So I don't know. I'm sure she has content on her website. Carrie Cassidy, was it Project Camelot? Probably projectcamelot.com, if you want to look into it. And by the way, Carrie was the person who inspired me to do all this. You know, seeing what she was doing with Bill Ryan back then inspired me to go, I'd like to do that too. Let's see. Seems like it would be the intention. This is a Searcher 59. Seems like it would be the intention that operates the craft. Now that's what Ralph has said. They would just focus on a color, aquamarine, and they would go. If not spiritually aligned, then might not work correctly. If you're not, so what he's saying is if you're not spiritually aligned, and what Ralph is saying is if you're not ready, it may not work correctly or at all. One of the things that certain pod members have been focusing on is conscious control of hardware. So they were digging for years, just doing all kinds of research into how to make, how do we make the technology, how do we make the human consciousness interface with the hardware and the technology. Ralph describes a crystal in the middle of the craft. When he first mentioned that, I didn't know, I was trying to understand what it was. Excuse me. That's the lunch coming back. Sorry about that. So, is the crystal a sphere or is it faceted? Because the way he describes it, he says that a laser had struck the crystal and refracted into a rainbow of infinite colors. And they would focus on aquamarine. I think the whole interior of the craft turned aquamarine. If you know anything about science and laser light, laser is a very narrow bandwidth, and it's going to be one color only, right? And that color of that light, if it hits a crystal, and it's not going to refract, it's going to bounce. So I'm a bit confused about the use of terminology, and I do remember in 2010 mentioning this to Ralph. So Ralph, again, is not an engineer. Maybe taking liberties with terminology, I don't know. But I just wanted to toss that out there about that because he mentions consciousness, and there's the crystal involved and the focusing on the color aquamarine. The next thing you know, they were 10 miles downrange. And real quick, the end of the story, they go out, they get on board the craft, and Ralph doesn't remember any of this. He doesn't remember what happened. It said it took him a year or two. It took some time for him to remember what happened during that trek, because when he got off the craft and disembarked, he didn't think anything happened. And Carr said, "Oh yeah, empty your pockets." And that's when they had all these sticks and twigs and dirt and whatever they picked up at the location 10 miles downrange at Apple Valley, California. Again, this is all recorded elsewhere. I feel like I'm rehashing a bit, but for those of you who are new, it may help fill in some of the blanks. So let's see here. Yeah, spirituality. Ralph has always said, by the time we're ready, we may not need the craft. So that speaks to, I think, your ability to maybe astral travel or project your consciousness elsewhere, or to bilocate elsewhere. Orangutango alien. See, how many operational ships still exist? I've never seen a one. I've not seen a single operational craft that's an OTCX-1, so I couldn't tell you. If we follow his story, there could be at least one, maybe two, buried somewhere in the desert by the government. Yeah. Okay. Adventures in skateboarding at 40 plus. R.I.P. William Tompkins. Yes, indeed. My grandfather. Oh, I didn't understand the relationship earlier there. Okay. I remember him as pretty interesting grandfather. You can say that again. Look, I spent hours at your grandfather's house, stuffing my face with cookies and coffee and leaving there on a sugar high, listening to him talk. And what's funny, maybe you experienced the same thing, but when I first met him, I could not ask a question. Oh, hang on a minute. Hold on a second. Oh, but wait. All right. Hours upon hours just listening to him share his stories. And I think that's what he really wanted to do. That's all he really wanted to do, was just to share his story. He didn't want the fame. He didn't want the BS that came after that. He just wanted to be able to tell his story. And that's what his book was about. And I think you know that too. It says here that, he took you on naval ships. Cool. Old steam trains, nice. And always had a grab bag with some surprise in it as a kid. Oh, that's nice. Thank you for sharing that. That's sweet. Yeah, he was. I was really impressed with the first day I met him. The first time I met your grandfather, I walked in. I had my camera over my shoulder, and I had another bag or something, because I'd set this up through Frank Chili, because Frank Chili knew him, and that's how I got connected with your grandfather. And I talked to your grandfather for 2 hours on the cell phone before I talked to him for 6 hours on the first day. And I asked him, be okay to shoot some video and bring my gear over, and he said yes. So I crammed all my lights, my backdrops, my sandbags, just my reflectors, everything in the back of my truck. And the first thing I had was my camera, because that's the most expensive piece of equipment I own. I didn't want to leave that in the parking lot. I knock on the door, I walk in, and he introduces me to your grandmother as his girlfriend. This is my girlfriend, and it was crystal clear how much he loved your grandmother. I thought, wow, and it was really nice. So now I'm looking around, I'm just trying to get a feel for the apartment. And if you remember, it was kind of a tight place, and where the sofa is and where the TV is, where am I going to set up the camera? How am I going to control the light? So I've got these things going as a filmmaker. How am I going to set this up while also trying to interact and include Mary in the conversation and talking to the Bill? And Mary's like, oh yeah, well, we can move the couch over here. We can set these end tables there, this sort of thing. And I look over and I get a glance of Bill, and here's your granddad. He's not saying anything. But I can sense that something's not right. I say, hang on a second, Mary. I said, Bill, is everything okay? And he said, look, and he didn't say anything. I said, look, it's about the camera, isn't it? He didn't want to shoot. I said, you don't want to do the film. He said, well, I just want to talk. So I said, well, when I talked to you on the phone, you said it was okay for me to come over and we would shoot a video. He says, well, I thought you were joking. Fine. Look, you want to talk, we'll talk. I put the camera down. We went to his office and we had a grand time. We just had a grand time. 2 hours in his office, another 4 hours at the pizza kitchen. Just da-da-da-da-da-da. It wasn't until the second time that your granddad called me where I got to come over and actually sit down and listen, and he let me ask some questions. Finally. And by the way, all the while, Carrie Cassidy, she's pinging me. She's sending me, and your dad had fallen and broken his wrist, and that's a potentially deadly thing. I had no idea. So he's also got some other health challenges he's dealing with. He's just not generally in a really good mood to maybe meet somebody new, to meet a Carrie Cassidy. So I'm asking Carrie, well, just hang on, just let me handle it. Trust me, trust me to make this arrangement for you. But anyway, that's the long and the short of it. You got an awesome grandfather, and I fell in love with that guy. One of the best friends I ever had, and I miss him. Great guy. Whew. Okay. Let's see. Let's move on. Where did I leave off here? Whew, boy, I got down that bunny trail, didn't I? This one skipped along. Yeah. So thank you, Adventures in Skateboarding at 40 plus. I really appreciate that. Mark R. Would you happen to know where to get more regarding Baumgartner's experiments? There's nothing solid online. Yes, there is. So if you remember, I have on my website, clandestinedisclosure.com, there are links to documents, and one of them is the 13 pages original that Baumgartner had, not just photographs that Carrie had picked out and then posted on her page. So it puts it all into context. You can see pictures of the craft that he built at the end. I think the last 3 or 4 pages that have the pictures. The first part of it goes into discussions about linear coils and various things. And linear coils are an interesting thing to look at. So for the guy who's asked me about coils earlier, look into linear coils too. I think there's something there worth exploring. Ralph's claim about Baumgartner. Baumgartner during my conversation was that he was able to get some levitation, but it was unstable. And Baumgartner was really very frustrated with it. And Ralph suggested that, well, it's where your head's at. You have to have your mind in the right space. You have to be in the right space. Otherwise, that energy goes into the product you're making. Whether you believe that or not, that's up to you. I tend to fault towards the science side, and let me check the resonant frequency of this thing. Is everything finely tuned? Because tuning is required. Now, that's the impression I get, just a feeling I get. Whatever craft you build, if you're going to make it levitate, resonant tuning is required. Anyway, I hope that answered your question. Baumgartner. If you can't find it, just write to me. You've got my email there, walter@clandestinedisclosure.com. I'll send you a direct link. Let's see here. Keurig, great attempt. Here's the thing. It's, my pronunciation sucks. Maori, Gaelic, Keurig is fine, thank you. Sorry. Okay, anyhow, Keurig, thanks again for the correction. Gaelic. Yeah, Polynesian, Maori. Yeah, maybe you have to do a recording and send that to me so I can get it right next time. Let's see, Rahit Kumar, again, welcome back. Stay safe and blessed, and good luck with your future projects from India. Thank you, appreciate that. Mercury, all COVID vaccines contain graphene oxide, which is pure poison, indeed. The Super Soldier program is very fascinating. Let's see, Super Soldiers. I don't have anybody except for, who's the guy I interviewed? lately. God, my mind and just names is just escaping me. 12 Years a Slave, 20 Years a Slave, that guy with a dark fleet. His was interesting. I'd like to have him back. That was a really good interview. Let's see, Big Drum, can we remote view for answers? You know what? During the course of the pods, that sort of thing was attempted. I'm not at liberty to discuss results. But we didn't find anything ultimately. How's that? Is the ship, okay, this is from Eleftheria, is a ship that sat over Phoenix in the 90s hours. Oh, the Phoenix Lights? You're talking about the Phoenix Lights, right? I have seen a gentleman in Australia that filmed several flying in formation across the sky. They were exactly the same shape. Used night vision. Yeah, the Phoenix Lights were kind of a funky, boxy shape, though, as I recall. I don't know whose those are. It's a good question. Some have decisive answers about that I've seen more recently. I think Mission Rama had something to do with that. I think they are the ones who summoned those craft when they appeared, if I'm not mistaken. That was during their CE5 event. Don't quote me exactly, but I believe, based on my foggy research recently, that Mission Rama, Enrique Villanueva, look him up, Enrique Villanueva. You can learn more about Mission Rama from him. Let's see, no COVID vaccine stuff that you're saying is BS. Okay, thank you. Is there any similarity situation with the Vril project? So Orangutan Alien's asking if there's any comparison between the OTCX-1 and the Vril project. I think the shape is probably the closest thing. If you take a look at some of the drawings that have come out of there, you'll see similarities. Very close. I mean, those are rough drawings, by the way. I remember analyzing all that one time and seeing similarities. Is it an exact duplicate? Who knows? I don't know. Let's see. Cree, thank you for your honest personal opinion and choice regarding current mandatory health provisions. Indeed. Thank you. Let's see. Well, I'm trying to scale, and it's just jumping. You guys are just really active today. Let's see. Scroll back up so I don't miss anything here. So what is 349? I think it was 369. Yeah, this is a Tesla. Josie Coon's asking about what is 369. What's the significance of that? And you know, Tesla's quote has to do with, when you understand the power of 369, and the rest is foggy, all right? It has to do with energy and frequencies in the universe. So, yeah, and 369, these are also frequency harmonics. Yeah. So that the implication is that plays into power and energy, and probably free energy, probably levitation, maybe. Let's see. Yes, T. Townsend Brown was doing similar experiments in the 20s. Yes, he was. And those patents are pretty interesting. On my website, I also have links to those patents. So T. Townsend Brown, I blew him off at first. I thought that he was just doing the lifters, you know, the ionic thrust lifters, and he's not doing ionic thrust lifters. In fact, there's another scientist out there who I have linked to on my website, a video presentation at the 1 hour mark. He talks about how T. Townsend Brown's technology was implemented in the B-1 bomber, insofar as applying a high voltage charge on the leading edge of the wing, which would induce thrust forward. And the theory is that you would get to a point where you would have all this high power there, and you would not need to turn you'd not have to have the engines running. So conceivably, you would have an aircraft that could reach around the globe. Basically, can attack anywhere with no limitation. And that's out there. Let's see, on my website, you can look up those patents and see and read all about T. Townsend Brown. Jerome, I'm reading the Magellan manuscript where they talk about quantum connection with the physical world. Cool. Let's see, Sasquatch can create its own interdimensional portal. How's that for skill? That's skill. Humans can do the same thing. Look up Mission Rama. Talk to anybody who's ever bilocated. Painful 13. Thanks for joining. Let's see. Adventures in Skateboarding at 40 plus. Never be the last one at the dinner table with Grandpa. Never be the last one at the dinner table with William Mills Tompkins. Why? Why? Is it because he talks? He loves to talk, but he's so fun to listen to. But you get to a point where you're out of gas. It's like you can't put any more in. I can't absorb anymore. Let's see. All right. Alien Hunto John. Oh boy, PT. My pronunciation sucks. Alien JPT. Please ask Ralph what he thinks about element 115. That's 115. Bob Lazar talked about it even before the scientists announced the discovery of the element. Again, Ralph's not an engineer, but I'll toss it his way. How's that sound? Let's see. Marcus North. Scotty, look into the structure of the lipid biogel used to deliver the mRNA intact. Okay, there we go. More jab stuff for you. Let's see. Do you have, Orangutango Alien, do you have more photos about the ship's design document? Okay, there aren't a lot of pictures online, very limited. What's out there has pretty much come from what Ralph has provided and what we've discovered. Everything else is probably going to be in private collections. So everything we have that's out there, if you're not finding anything more, I mean, that's it. That's whatever you can Google and find out there, there's not a lot of it. That's all there is. Unless somebody has it in a private collection, they're willing to post all that stuff out there. That's all we got. I'm sorry. Let's see. Anna Trejos. Let's see. See, all I am aware, this is still hot. You don't have to answer. He has a lot to say, but he is buried in prison deep underground, reptilian contact, and more. His wife continues with the fight to free him. Oh, this goes back to Carrie Cassidy's interviews, right? Carrie, see that? I just stuck with Carrie that time. Are you able to outline which type of mental methodology is used to focus consciousness, alter vibration, and attune frequency? It's for me, I don't have that's a good question. I'm thinking in meditation, you think about the different states you can get into, theta, delta, alpha, I think theta is probably what you're going to go for. To get there, for you to, what Bill used to like to call travel, or fly. I think you call it flying or traveling. Yeah, Bill would go out, and it can be done through the meditation. Let's see. And by the way, I have bilocated once, and it was amazing. Let's see. And Jolly, what you think about her? Okay, Tony. Yes, thank you, Jerome. So the Dark Fleet guy, his name is Tony Rodriguez, and he was one of the last live streams that I did with the Super Soldier guys. Let's see. Check, they call me the Ghost, Phoenix. Alias, just a name given to him as the alien from Roswell. Krauss, only one left. Let's see, my question about how many ships are still working. Big alien smile, thank you. Martin, my pleasure. You're welcome. Let's see. I think you are a great guy. Thank you for doing this. Very grateful. Again, my pleasure. Thank you guys. You guys are awesome. The number of you people have tuned in, I really very much appreciate it. Yep, Steve Tompkins was great. He was a hoot. He was a hoot to hang out. What else can I share with you about him? I've shared this one with Jerome. We were when I picked him up to take him to Bob Wood. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning because we had to drive to Huntington Beach. He told me some stories about being in Washington, D.C. at Crystal City underground. There's an underground mall there, and there's some, I guess the military industrial complex has, along with hotels, they've also got offices. So this is a place that Bill went to. On this particular trip, he was called in to consult with some top Navy guy. about certain solutions that it seems that his think tank was always thinking and coming up with ideas, and Bill was kind of like on the spot with these ideas all the time. So his story to me was that, I haven't found any proof to whether this is true or not, but he came up with some methodology of retrofitting P-3 Orion subdestroying aircraft with equipment that could scan the ocean floor for underground sea bases, reptilian sea bases. And he suggested this before it was even asked. It was something that the Navy was thinking about at the time. In fact, you know what? Jeff Renz has detailed information on that particular story, come to think of it. Yes, if you go to jeffrenz.com, he's got a wealth of stuff on William Tompkins. If you want to hear all of the stories, go out there and check them out. Renz.com. Let's see here. Let's see. Was Obama in Mars in the 80s in an educational study connected to Project Pegasus? Now, that's going to be a question for Andy Bishago. Andrew D. Bishago. I recognize this story. And I actually have some footage of him from 2012 that I'm not allowed to publish yet. And it's not because of the information that's in there. It's all out there. At the time, he just didn't. I was learning lighting, and I had him under hard light, and he really didn't look good. It was really a horrible picture. So that one doesn't get to go out because he didn't like the way he looked, and I'm going to honor his request for that. But as far as Obama is concerned and the purpose, if you listen to Laura Eisenhower and some of the others out there, and I think Andy may have said something about this. I hate to put words in his mouth, but it was just to be a presence on Mars, to establish a presence on Mars. And Andy's got a whole story about him, William Stillings, and Obama and Willie McCool all in the same classroom up in Mount Shasta, where they were learning how to survive. They were being taught by Ed Dames. Remember that on Coast to Coast? Ed Dames came on and denied the whole thing. So Andy's story, they were being taught in Shasta about how to survive on Mars. And during that time, William Stillings' father, Brett Stillings' father, had interrupted a conversation that there was a future president in the classroom, and they were referring to Obama, who was then known as Barry Soetoro. And Stillings' father interjected not one but two future presidents, implying that Andy would become president in the future. Time has marched on. Andy has not become president. So who's to say that if it will happen or if timelines have shifted? I don't know. So as far as Obama's purpose on Mars, who knows? Who knows? But there's stuff out there you can read about him. Rob Sullivan, thank you so much. You're awesome. Appreciate you. Super chat. Appreciate that. Bishago, yes, perhaps. Project Pegasus and Bishago are linked. Let's see. Where are the questions here? So, Big Drum, Walter, will there be a third Tompkins book? Yes, there will. I'm told that they're working on that. And what that's going to be, the third Tompkins book is going to be pretty much all that stuff I pointed to you out there on Jeff Renz. My understanding is they're going to create transcripts of all that. So everything that Tompkins ever said is going to be documented in this book, and I've given them permission to use my stuff as well. That's my understanding. How long that's going to take, who knows? Is that the only thing that's going to be included? I don't know. Maybe William Tompkins' grandson can chime in and reach out to the guys, and Dr. Robert Wood and the others, and maybe you've got some anecdotes you'd like to share with them. Perhaps that makes its way into book 3. Let's see. There's going to be another book. Someone else will have to publish and author it. Oh, what do you mean, Jerome? Someone else. Oh, okay. I get your meaning. All right. Let's see if there's going to be another book. Let's see. Turkey UFO incident. Ooh, the Turkey UFO incident. Yeah, that one was interesting. So the Turkey UFO incident, that was June 8, 2008. Was it real or fake? It's always tough to tell with video. You know, I remember that being long distance, shot through atmosphere, and it came out grainy. So who's to say? Really, so what this was, for those of you who are not familiar with the footage, as I recall, it's shot over a lake. It seems black and white, and it's kind of one of these, if I recall right, it's one of these kind of almost this arc-shaped craft, and then you've got a maybe windows on the top, and you can see in the windows, and they appear to be alien grays. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the Turkey UFO incident. Let's see. Oh, you think Frank Celli, Steve 94044, insightfully stipulated, thinks that Frank Celli may have more info to share regarding William Tompkins' story. I think that he does. He worked with Jeff Rense. He was like partnered with Jeff Rense and brought him in, did all the scheduling and co-hosted with Jeff Rense all of his shows. And, you know, he just knows a lot of stuff. He was around Tompkins a lot more than I was. You know, I was the guy Tompkins called whenever needed his printer fixed, right? I need paper, I need whatever. Or he just had a few questions, or he wanted to talk over cookies and coffee. So yeah, I did that probably maybe 3 times, coming over to his house to chat. But I always enjoyed it. Every time I got to go over there, it was really nice. But yeah, Frank Celli, we have to have him back on and see what else he's got. Steve, what do you think? Yeah. Let's see here. So Orangutan Alien says that everything will be revealed this year. Do you know how many years we've heard that? I don't think a year has gone by since 2008 that somebody hasn't said that. No offense intended. Just take it with a grain of salt. If everything will be revealed, how much is everything? What constitutes everything? You know, what are we talking about exactly? You know, your definition of everything, or even what is full disclosure, will differ from your neighbor. You know, he has other interests over here. He wants to know about the spiritual aspect, and maybe you just want to know about the craft. You want to have exposure to technology. The guy over here, 3 doors down, he wants to have the formula to how to build a nuclear weapon. You know, everything. Yeah. What are we talking about? Everything. I know we're in the context of flying saucers and UFOs. I get it. Let's see. Oh gosh, you guys are awesome. Let's see, King of Mundo. Let's just say King of Mundo. There was a talk that Hitler has a zombie army. Is that true? You know, it is. In every single first-person shooter game I've ever done, that's absolutely true. Yeah. Let's see here. Zombie. I don't know what to think of that. I think you're just fun. And zombie army. I'm not going to go there. Let's see here. Knock from Berlin. Welcome to the chat. Let's see. White Viewer Parrot. This German craft, the craft I saw had square windows. Is that the Turkish one? I don't know which one you're talking about. White Viewer Parrot. Johnny Casadio from Brazil. Welcome to the chat. Man, people from all over the world. I got Berlin. I got Brazil. Let's see, India. Speaking of India, we have Rohit back. What kind of UFO, USO technology hides in Antarctica region and center of Australia? You know what, guys? I'm going to have a devil of a time going through this chat, pulling out all these questions. I have 60 minutes with Ralph. So that's kind of part of the reason I'm here. Maybe I can inject some of the answers. I'll tell you right now, Ralph tends to be a little long with the tooth on stuff. So I'm not going to guarantee he's going to get to all your questions, but we'll do our best, okay? Let's see. But what kind of UFO, USO technology hides in Antarctica region in the center of Australia? You know, I think it's probably the same kind of technology that we've seen in the Tic Tac UFO. I think it's going to be the same sort of thing. What do you think? All right. Hit the like, folks. Thumbs up. Thank you, Panfoil, for reminding me to ask people to like my videos. Let's see. Clarenwald, would you consider the flying saucer art piece of Painfield Community Park in Washington State to be a form of gloating in our faces. Many reported UFO reported between Blaine, Port Angeles. You know, gloating. Do you think, I might answer that question with a question. Do you think that, that the Freemasons gloat in similar fashion? Do you think perhaps that the Freemasons had some involvement in establishing that structure there? If so, I think you might have your answer. Could be. Then again, if it's, well, if it's just an artist, then maybe it's just all nonsense. Let's see. I believe, says the Orangutango alien. There's a difference between believing and knowing. Orangutango, do you believe or do you know? What do you know? Let's see. Use DuckDuckGo engine for your searches, unfiltered for the most part. Yeah. You can also go incognito to strip out any customized search responses too, so that you're not winding up with, you know, gardening replies when you start looking for UFO, that sort of thing. Let's see. Are reptilians reality? I guess it depends on who you are and what you've experienced. If you've had experience with them, I might tend to consider that they're real, but until I actually have a face-to-face confrontation with one, I sit comfortably on the fence and decide whether I'm going to jump off on the side of truth and reality and bullshit. I don't know. I have no answer for you. Let's see. Tried to send a super sticker and it doesn't take. Catch you another way. All right. Look down in the description field. I got tip jar. I've got PayPal in there if you want to go that route as well. Thank you for trying though. And that was from Karen Kinsley. Oh, Karen, I remember you. Yeah, we had some good talks, and I hope that you're finding some answers. Yeah. Okay. Maxim Fabio, hi from Russia. We have many military activity here. You think? Russia? Really? Military activity in Russia? I assume that it's related to UFO stuff. And since you're in Russia, you could probably make better heads or tails out of Alexei Chekurkov than I can. I think that native Russian speakers will be able to discern the energy a little better than through a translator. So maybe you go out there and share a little bit about your impressions on Alexei Chekurkov's craft. I call it a rust bucket. It's a little thing, it spins, it's kind of wobbly, and it levitates. Let's see. Low frequency asks, who controls the governments, reptilians or grays? I think that you get a mix of both dark and light on that one, on who controls. Balance in all things, right? The yin and the yang. Let's see, who controls the governments? No questions for me. I only hope Ralph and Marsha are doing well. Give them our blessings. Yeah, you know, for those who don't know, they lost their home a few years ago in the Paradise Fire and had to evacuate and do the grace. I mean, they lost everything. All they had were the clothes on their backs in their car, and it was a harrowing escape getting out of that place. I couldn't imagine going through that. But they are today, they're in their forever home, and they're well rooted now and are doing well. So you get to see them. We'll have them online, and you'll see them on 9/11. Let's see. Okay, got that. Orangutan alien. Brazil confirmed. Thank you. Does Ralph have a book? No, not that I'm aware. Not that I'm aware. If he did, I'm sure the guys would have acquired that, and that would have been all over the place by now. Let's see. Rui Pereira, do we go for Star Trek civilization with Blade Runner pockets here on Earth? Maybe that's what we have now. Maybe we have that now. Let's see. Mr. Cosmos, Billy Faye Woodard. I watched all the documentary. Did he ever showed up some documents that he was in the Army? Okay, so Mr. Cosmos is asking for documentary proof that Billy Faye Woodard had indeed served in the military. And when I met him, I asked him for his DD-214, which he could not produce. And I asked him why. He said, well, when he moved, because of everything he's sharing, he was threatened, he lost his pension, and it disappeared in the move. Well, I'm thinking, all right, well, having served in the military myself, I know that all you have to do, you can request to get a replacement of your military record. And he said, and his answer was that he tried. I said, what was the result? He said, and these were his words, the office of the President of the United States denied his request. Moving on. Let's see. Karen, another question here. Are most advanced technologies inventors working with off-worlders and their knowledge? Obviously an opinion question. So the premise of Karen's question is that those people walking around on two legs on Earth, with the brain bigger than most of us here online, are developing technologies, and they're doing so with the help of off-worlder visits. Now, I can tell you that Ralph implied in his story that they got that kind of help, that one day they had somebody deliver pizzas, and there's some strangers who showed up asking some interesting questions and were keenly interested in what Otis Carr was doing. And the implication is that they were visitors. I think that your consciousness, when you get into that theta zone, where you can reach out and tap the field of all that is, which is information. And I've talked with pods about this. They've kind of given me, bits of information on how they think it works. Through meditation, when you're primed with engineering knowledge, and you're looking for an answer to a solution, such as free energy, levitation, you go into meditation and you let the mind work. What does the mind do? It goes into the theta state and it wanders, and it's able to acquire information. And look, this is no strange practice to even Thomas Edison, who did the same sort of thing. He'd hold some balls, sit in a chair until he fell asleep. When the balls hit the floor, it'd wake him up, and he'd remember the last thing he was thinking just before he'd nodded off, and that helped him through his development. So the question is, were these inventors, be it Thomas Edison, a pod member, or some of these people working on the dark projects, were they directly working with aliens, extra-dimensional beings, or their own consciousness tapping the information field? I think it's even tough to say for those who are receiving that information. For people who've even had contact experiences, they're not able to tell you whether it's consciousness or an alien or an angel or a devil or something else in between, right? Because it's the mind at work. In any case, the end result is an advanced technology product, a lot of which gets consumed by governments due to national interest and defense interests. So I don't know. What do you think? Boy, too many vowels crunched together. I can't pronounce it well. Lawn, Ferreria. Oh God, I'm sorry. The world is controlled by archons. Oh, archons. Okay, so the world is controlled by archons. Archons, created this world, and the humanity is food for theirs. Okay, interesting. I don't know a lot about archons, so I don't have anything to contribute in the archon department. I'm sorry. Rohit, India, again, glad you're here. You're saying having you as a host is awesome. Any opinions on Taliban forming government in Afghanistan? And my condolences for Ralph Ring. Now we're getting into the realm of politics, and I think I'd like to avoid geopolitical comment because it may serve to alienate half my audience. I do have some opinions about it, and you can imagine where they are. Being an American. Being a conservative American. See, there I go. All right. Wid viewer parrot. Tic Tac UFO is made in the USA. You saw it with UFO drones. Okay, cool. You know, maybe it is. It's interesting that we've got our, if that's the case, then I find it interesting that our U.S. Navy pilots are chasing around as if we don't know what they are. Let's see. There's extra source of details about OTCX. I've already answered questions about details on the OTCX1 projects. Frank Chili. Okay, I think we've come to the bottom of the thread here. I've been on here a while, and I think it's time to cut this short. Alex DeKirchhoff's schematics seem simple. I'd love to see. Don't go, look, the schematics are wonky. You got to do more than that. So there's somebody who's making a comment about following Alexei Chekurkov's schematics, which I have posted on my website. And I've got an interpretation out there what the engineers think they are. I had one engineer over in Holland actually attempt this and not make any headway with it. The engineers have moved on from that schematic to other things, and which propelled me into walking away from the project. But anyhow, yeah, I would just, if again with the electronics warning, be careful. Look at all the other gear that they're using in there. I think I've got pictures calling out the different components. I don't know if they have a variac in there, something extracted out of a television, which tends to have which can hold a very high deadly charge. So you got to be really careful with this stuff. He's running a Tesla coil in there. He's running easily in excess of 30,000 volts through that to get it's static, but you're still playing with coils on the secondary and the primary. It just gets scary. Whatever you do, really understand what you're doing before you dive into any of that stuff. Alexei, he's a garage mechanic. I get the impression he knows at least a little bit about electronics, given the stuff he's playing with. But whatever you do, just be careful. Try not to dive headlong into an investment where you're dumping thousands and thousands of dollars in thing and you're kicking somebody, and I don't want you kicking me because I've given you a warning, I've given you a heads up. It ain't cheap to R&D, and this stuff can be dangerous. I've said it enough times, and I don't even know if that works. So if you want to try it, be careful, please. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off now. I'm starting to get a bit hoarse. Look, let me switch over here so you can get my email real quick. I've been on camera this whole time. This shows you the things that we talked about today. My email is there on the bottom. Please, write to me if you've got questions and you want them written out. You want to stand a better chance at having them tossed towards Ralph and Marsha Ring. Send me an email with your questions. They'll be a lot easier for me, so I don't have to harvest them from here. I'll still go through here and pick out the questions, but if you kindly please email them to me, and I can pick them out, send them to Ralph, and he can figure out what he wants to do with the 60 minutes. How's that sound? Okay, if there isn't any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and terminate this YouTube video, and thank you all very much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you all on September 11th, 2021 at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Thank you all very much, and good day.